This story begins in a hospital maternity wing, where the miracle of human birth is a daily commonplace, where sure, efficient, antiseptic routine rules all human life. All new and expecting mothers, all infants just arrived and soon to arrive, and all expectant fathers. For them, the maternity routine is quite simple. First, you wait. Second, wait patiently or look like it. And most important, keep from underfoot. The situation's funny in a way until you're the guy who's involved. But then when the important things are happening, even when it's your second or third time around, you find you're absolutely useless. You feel like the 10th man on a baseball team. Who needs you? Wait and wait. Of course she's all right. Kids are born every day. Of course she's all right. Little things pop into your head, like the light in your first baby's eyes when she saw her first Christmas tree. And you wait. And you think of the other side of the coin, the side that reads bills to pay and responsibilities. And you go back to waiting all over again, and time passes very slowly. But when the waiting is done, when the miracle has finally happened, everything changes. In one single moment, all the pieces fit into place. That 10th man on the team becomes the coach of the future all-time greats. You're needed. There's your whole future wrapped up in one tiny 8-pound bundle. This is what it's all about. This is how it was the night our Helen was born. The night I met Joe Walton. My immediate plans included a fast phone call to Dad, another to Helen's folks in Chicago, and then a sleep that'd make Rip Van Winkle look like an insomniac. No plans for strangers named Joe Walton. The kid was having it rough, really rough, I could tell. Trying to cover, of course, but without much success. Well, what do you do? The vital statistics were simple enough. Joe was 23 years old, presently unemployed, already the father of 3. The real trouble lay in the room down the hall. His wife, Doris, had been in labor for 11 hours. 11 hours. Now, even I knew this didn't check out for the 4th child. Something was wrong. I knew it. Well, at least I was keeping his mind off things, and as time passed, I learned that things for Doris and Joe were pretty mixed up. Maybe the intern's visit was routine, maybe it wasn't. Everything's going to be all right, Joe. You just hold on. How do you answer the panic in a man's eyes? There's nothing wrong, Joe, just a delay. It often takes longer than this. Why, my first one. So you lie a little. Maybe it'll help. By now, Joe really needed someone to take over, and these 4 walls were doing neither of us any good. I knew an all-night eatery across the street where the hospital could reach him as quickly by phone as if he stayed here in this sweatbox. A quick call at the reception desk, and we were across the street. I've never been too strong in the big brother role, but tonight Joe Walton needed help. And maybe I was the guy to give it. Anyway, I was the only guy around. His story had a familiar ring. Early marriage and a quick succession of kids, 1 a year, since he and Doris were married. The first was a big event, and their parents helped carry things. But with a second and a third, they were on their own. But he'd make out if only things went right this time. It was then he cut loose. What was really eating this guy was a paralyzing fear that Doris wouldn't pull through. She had developed a kidney condition, and this pregnancy was really dangerous. Now, they'd known the danger for a year. But what do you do, said Joe. The old story, no one of their children had been planned. Child spacing, Joe didn't understand, but he should understand, and I took the plunge and started in, the easiest way I could, with my own story. The story started 20 years ago. I was one of a family of 8. There were more children, but only 6 of us grew up. And when you rub elbows with half a dozen kids in your own home every day, there's not much chance that any one of you will be spoiled. And that's good. But sometimes there's not much chance for a lot of things that each one of you needs from your parents. Now, even today, my early childhood recollections of my parents are disturbing. I couldn't understand a lot of things that went on around the house. Angry words at night when I wasn't supposed to hear. Insults that sounded real and cruel. They were good, honest people trying their best to provide a decent home for all of us. But at 10, you can't realize what it takes out of a man and woman trying to keep 8 people together on a bus driver's salary. At 10, you can't begin to appreciate the endless drudgery, the fatigue, and the deadening frustration that come with too many children and too little money. Now, 20 years too late, I know why they quarreled. But then it sounded as though the very people who were supposed to love me and brought me into the world often wished I'd never been born. I knew this wasn't fair to any one of us. I made up my mind that if I ever had a family of my own, it would be a very different one. When I was a kid, the word delinquent meant nothing more than delayed. Our neighborhood was crawling with good kids who had a lot of fun together, but usually I sat out most of the excitement. Between babies, my mother had to work, and every one of us older kids had to pitch in on the household chores as soon as we were able. It's great to develop a sense of responsibility, I suppose, but when you have to take it on too young, you're liable to miss out on a lot of important living. One thing you learn early in a big family, don't ask for expensive toys or gifts. You're wasting your time. But, well, I can't remember a time when I wasn't interested in building or construction, and one day I spotted a toy that'd make me the master builder of all time. I never wanted anything so hard in all my life. And this visit to the toy store was very carefully staged. I was too young to realize how much her refusal cost her. Only later I began to see how much she suffered when she had to turn down so important a request. Joe was listening hard. I knew bells were ringing all over the board for him, and he was trying to make the connection. But the eatery phone bell was still quiet. Still no word of Doris, so I went on. Time had passed. The older I became, the more I was convinced that my future lay somewhere in the business of building. I read and studied everything I could lay my hands on, and finally I decided I wanted to be an architect. I guess I was pretty good in school, high school. Each new accomplishment convinced me that I was well on my way. I could see now they were proud of me and how pleased they were with my success. But if I'd only looked a little closer, I would have seen something else. How they were being torn apart with worry over my expensive dreams. Where would the college money come from? Would it hurt me too much when I came face on to the hard facts of life? The hard facts caught up with all of us, all of a sudden. My mother died, too young. I always felt she was worn out from too many children, too much responsibility and too much work. It didn't seem fair that a woman who gave so much of herself couldn't have had a few more years. Maybe even a chance for a little plain enjoyment. But there it was. And added to it was another personal blow to me. To this day, I don't think any one of the family knows I was offered a full scholarship in the Fine Arts Department at Herndon University. It was my big chance to take a crack at those skyscrapers I wanted to build. But I couldn't see myself at Herndon with Dad trying to raise the family alone. I don't mind admitting that decision hurt. I was even a little sore about the whole deal for a while. But it wasn't anybody's fault. Mother and Dad had just let nature take its course. There were too many of us, and we all took it on the chin. By now, Joe could see himself and Doris sailing head-on into the very same problem. But what could he do about it? Well, all right, plenty. For one thing, I told him about the Planned Parenthood Center downtown, where he could get all the help he needed from experts, and it would cost him only what he could afford to pay. Planned Parenthood had made it possible for us to have young Mike when we were ready for him. And the new little lady across the street had arrived on our schedule, thanks to Planned Parenthood. Thanks to the architect I was doing drafting for back then, I'd been there with Helen soon after we were married. I went with her the first time on the excuse that she might be nervous. But I was really curious to find out more about this group. Well, in about 30 seconds, we both discovered one thing. This was a very pleasant place indeed. Everyone on the staff took time out to be friendly. Helen was a little nervous, but she began to relax immediately. And when she went off to find the nurse, I went out to look for a seat in the waiting room. Well, there, too, the atmosphere was easygoing. Everyone had an intimate reason for being there, but instead of being awkward or embarrassed about it, they were taking it as one of those things. Even the kids had a good time. I learned a lot in a very short time. And what it comes down to, Planned Parenthood believes that children who are wanted and planned for are going to have a fairer chance in life than the kids who just appear on the scene. They were talking my language. Helen told me later that people came there for a variety of reasons, to unlearn the back fence gossip and find the medical facts about safe, reliable child spacing methods, for advice and counsel on all kinds of marriage problems. And another interesting part of the work that goes on here, Planned Parenthood centers help scores of childless couples have babies of their own. And Helen said on an average, 1 out of 3 of these couples succeeds. Helen and the nurse hit it off right away. It would be hard not to get along with Miss Fitzgerald. She began talking babies, and it wasn't long before Helen realized she was sitting with a truly intelligent and dedicated member of the nursing profession. Her immediate job was to take Helen's medical history, and it was thorough and complete to the last detail. But there wasn't any prying into our affairs, just the medical facts they needed to give us the help we wanted. Next, she met with Dr. Wilson, who discussed child spacing methods. Helen learned that the one she was most interested in was safe, reliable, painless, and harmless, and in no way affected her ability to have children. It's amazing how many women go through life ignorant of standard medical facts. But Dr. Wilson saw to it that by the end of Helen's visit, she was not one of them. When our visit to the center was over, we didn't need to say thanks. Thanks were written all over Helen's face and mine. At last, we knew we could have the family we both wanted when we were ready, physically, emotionally, and financially ready. It was early morning when I finished up on Joe. Maybe I was doing the boy some good. Maybe. This was it. The next few moments could make or break this boy. I hadn't prayed so hard since young Mike. The miracle had happened once again. A new day had begun, and with it, for Joe Walton and Doris, a new chance. And for their children, a new kind of chance, a fair chance.